Dear Venerable Bhante, Venerable sisters and brothers, Dhamma friends, we are going to start the talk today. May everyone settle down for the talk and give the consent with 3 times sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Katame tayo dhamma parinyeya tisso vedanati ti. Dear Venerable sisters and brothers, Dhamma friends, this is the topic we took in our first day itself in this series, whereby Venerable Sariputta is drawing our attention to these 3 kinds of feelings as something to be penetrated into, something to be understood thoroughly. So for the last few days, we took time, starting from bare attention or the mere mindfulness. How can we learn? How can we thoroughly understand first the physical phenomena, something like the breath or the rising and falling, or when we are in simple walking, the right step placing on the ground and the left leg placing on the ground. And beyond that, in our whatever may be the physical phenomena in our day-to-day activities, use it under the light of mindfulness. That means, in a sense, to see the beginning, the middle, and the end of phenomena as and when it arises. Not the whole thing arising, whatever may be prominent, whatever may be conspicuous, and get the easy access with that prominent place and improve or let the mindfulness to pervade as much as possible in sitting posture, in walking, sakmana, or in day-to-day activities. When that happens, as and when the mindfulness gain the ground, basically with this physical phenomena, you can understand it is not limited to the physical part, there is a mental part, there is a immaterial part, and when and where the mindfulness give the green light, we step into naturally to this mental part. And in the teaching of the Buddha, the next, first and foremost thing in mental part is this feeling. That is the way Venerable Sariputta is emphasizing in this particular quotation. You must be thorough in these feelings. And for that, we must have so much of other variables, or in the sense, so much of momentum, so much of our trial and error, our experience, theoretical understanding, and deductive knowledge, preparedness. So that is what we were discussing for the last few days with the help of other discourses. And being today the last part of our series of Dhamma talks, I thought of summarizing everything so that basically when the lay meditators go back home, go back to their own way of life, how can we have kind of a practical, pragmatic approach, comprehensive approach. For that also, I'm going to quote a particular discourse. You may take your own time and study, and I am going to just give the summary, because it is a fairly descriptive kind of discourse known as Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta appear in the Middle Length sayings, Majjhima Nikaya. If I am to be precise, it is the Sutta number 137 in Uparipannasa, the last 50s in Majjhima Nikaya. And they are, the Buddha himself is presenting this thesis, whereby he says to go into that, you must have certain understanding, basically theoretical understanding. You must, first and foremost, you must understand an individual means there are 6 sense doors available. It's an agglomeration of these 6 sense doors internally. That is what we call a being. There's an eye faculty, eye as a faculty, ear, nose, tongue, body and the mind. And they are also, even though you have eye intact, the eye will never get stimulated unless otherwise it is from the light perception or the energy of light. So therefore, eye has to be avenued with the external stimuli, that's a light. The shape and the color, it may be in variety. And the ear must be with the sound waves, and ear is very specific one, only sensitive to the sounds. If the sounds come and hit on the eye door, it won't make any kind of a avenuing or coming face to face with. So therefore each and every faculty, that's the external stimuli, Bahiddha, Ayatana, that means the light, the sound, the smell, the taste, the tactile sensation, and our thinking, mental aspects. So one has to understand the life means the one at a time getting avenued with this external stimuli, and the story is continuing, like a train, like a chain. So it is happening, that is what we call a living being, and therefore one has to have a certain amount of understanding, at least in theory. So when and where I is face to face with this light or energy of light or shape or color, the consciousness take the role of eye consciousness. Consciousness becomes eye consciousness, and that means whenever consciousness get engaged in this eye and the light perception, you are naturally a blind person, deaf person. Whatever the sound happens at that time, whatever the eardrum is intact, you can't hear because your consciousness is engaged in seeing. You are just a seer. You cannot be a listener. You cannot be otherwise. So likewise, that particular consciousness itself is very, very specific. It's happening so quickly, in a swift manner. So therefore, whenever eye is in view with the light or shape or a color, to understand now the consciousness is taking the adjective eye, and it becomes eye consciousness. And immediately, without any prior alarm, it can shift into ear consciousness next moment, if the sound waves going to give a big stimuli or big thrills and frills without any marking, without any precursor alarming, the eye consciousness immediately becomes ear consciousness. So there you will be a listener, no more seer. So likewise, the function of each consciousness also very, very electric, very, very quick. So you have to understand. When and where the eye, the light perception and the consciousness come in alignment, go together, that is what we call the contact. So accordingly, there are 6 kinds of contacts. Eye contact, or ear contact. And likewise, you have to understand this is how it works. So unless otherwise you have this kind of a theoretical understanding and certain amount of pausing, certain amount of slowing down, certain amount of vigilance, certain amount of diligence, certain amount of mindfulness, sometimes you can isolate them. You can see now I am a seer. This is the object I am looking at. My eye is the engaged thing, and this type of consciousness is eye consciousness, and contact is eye contact. So this is it happens, and next moment what is going to happen, no one knows. Each and every one of us, we don't have any agenda. We can't do as we like. And therefore it says, even though I am living in this house, I am not the executive here. I am not the owner of this house. I can't command, I can't demand. It is happening. So that very understanding, this exposure into this electric thing itself is fearful for the people with permanent notion. In our day-to-day life, we are promoting our permanent notion, our identity, our good name, our reputation, our all the abilities, everything happen under the permanent notion. But our midst of that, whenever you are going to listen this kind of a talk, when you are going to ponder into that, whenever you are met up with this quick shift arrangements, you find they are polar apart. So that understanding is a must. That is why we take this kind of a residential retreat. And when this is happening, you can understand when and where eye is avenued with this visual object, and how much the phenomena of seeing going to overwhelm. You can understand how much we start daydreaming, fantasizing, and storytelling about what you have seen, and it is going on. The term the Buddha uses, manopavichara, and exploration. That means we are so get imbibed, so get absorbed, so get into it, and ultimately that become your mental proliferation, and keep on doing. And when that happens, you may, if you are very sharp enough, you may see you are no more contact with face-to-face with the object, visual object. You are daydreaming, you are fantasizing, you have taken for a ride, and it is keep on going. That is called mental proliferation. So in that sense, we are living in our own universe. So therefore, the term universe is being challenged, and they say multiverse. We are living in our own bubble. We are living in our own mental world, and that is why we can't communicate. We are talking in two different languages. We try to prove, verify, justify our own universe, our own manopavichara, mental exploration. So how can two come at the same terms, as if two people looking at or observing the same dream like? Cannot happen. They are night dream, but we are in daydream. So this is the way it is happening. So that understanding is very important. So definitely tomorrow, after this time, we were thinking about packing and going back home. And when it is happening, imagine the present thought moment, we are attentively listening to something, and we are in somewhat in restraint, and that we can see the chain of thoughts, train thoughts. And tomorrow by this time, what the way of thinking, what the way of planning we have individually, we are taken away from our personal interest. So therefore, after understanding this kind of analysis, theoretical maybe, or deductive maybe, analysis, then the Buddha says that with this kind of descriptive analytic way, he presents the thesis in 36 kind of beings, positions. If you take one individual, that particular individual, or as a group, we have 36 kind with related with the feelings. Now we are slowly coming to the main topic. The Buddha says, whenever you are avenued with or face-to-face with the visual object, and whenever you are being a seer, there may be a pleasurable exploration, a pleasurable kind of feeling, or painful kind of feeling, or neutral, neither pain, no pleasure kind of feeling. And therefore, whenever the seeing happens, it diversifies into this, our popular subject of pleasure, pain, and here it is known as equanimous, or neither pain nor pleasure. And with sounds, another 3. And with the nose and the olfactory sensation, pleasure, pain, and the neutral. And tastes, the tactile sensation, and our thinking, daydreaming, fantasizing, they also have 3. And they are also, if you analytical, or if you are looking at in the insight way, you can see the very same object at a time, according to your mental background, may appear like a pleasurable. At a time, its very thing may appear like a painful. Or sometimes it is neither pain nor pleasure, or it is insignificant. So therefore, that also can be changing, shifting. One gives rise to the other. If you look at it in a persistent way under the light of mindfulness, or steadfast mindfulness. So therefore you can understand 18 patterns, 3 each, 6 faculties. And imagine when you renounced, you now, the way of our day-to-day activities called, we are under the full-time retreat. And we are residential retreat. So we are renounced. And whenever you come to the Chuanyek and taken precepts and develop certain amount of mindfulness, and whenever it is successful, just like when we are discussing yesterday, when you are walking, even though you are supposed to be with the left leg touch and the right leg touch, a visual objects can happen. Whenever it happens, you are looking at it in a different way, through a different lens, because you are with restraint now. You are with the motor restraint, concentration restraint, and on top of that you are going to have this wisdom restraint. So therefore, the same very object, as a layperson, as a householder, may appear differently as a full-time meditator or residential meditator. There are also that can create, or through eye consciousness, can create pleasurable, painful, and neither pain nor pleasure kind of a situation. So some, even I also had before the ordination, they think just mere by renunciation, becoming ordained, you will get Nibbana. You will go to the liberation. And therefore they think that household bondages are the real things. So if you are lucky enough, you can get the renunciation, leaving the household, you'll be better off. Of course it is good, but when you go there only, you will see the other part of the story. In the renounced life, in the meditative life. And they are also exactly the same. You have the pain, you have the pleasure, you have the neither pain nor pleasure kind of a situation with respect to the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. So there's another 18 you come across as a meditator. So after presenting, the Buddha says, now you have 36 positions pertaining to 6 kind of feelings and 6 sense doors. This 36, And beyond that, nothing you can add. Nothing you can subtract from this list also. So therefore, as far as the 36 positions of being are concerned, we are all the same. Because we are human. And this is the starting town. It's a starting point. And you may take little time to see how the pleasure arises. Whenever you are mindfully observing something, whenever you continuous and steadfast with the seeing, and when and where you are about to see the transition nature of the very object that you're observing, there's a kind of a pleasure. For the first time when you see the object that you're observing, for example, breath is starting very subtle and become gross at the middle, and it is disappearing. So whenever you are observing that in a healthy way, instructed way, there is a kind of a pleasure. There is a kind of a immaterial pleasure, meditative kind of pleasure. The Buddha called it as a renunciated kind of pleasure. For the first time you are going to see the intrinsic characteristics, or 3 characteristics of all the conditioned thing, they are changing nature. So when and where you are to see the changing nature of the visual object, or changing nature of the sound of silence, changing into silence, from the sounds to the silence, and exactly the smells, tastes, and tactile sensation, or your mind objects, whenever they are changing, earlier as a householder it appears like a threat for your permanent notion, but due to your theoretical understanding and the correct perspective and correct adverting of your mind, whenever you are going to see the changing nature, it's a renunciated kind of a pleasure. It is called immaterial kind of pleasure. It is called niramisa sukha, and it is only for the meditators it is happening. That is also only for the successful meditators happen. So together with immediately, you develop kind of a task. When can I be 100% aware, 100% realize this changing nature of the visual object, and you have just seen the dawn, just seen the rising part, so you try your best. Next sitting, I must become Sotapanna. Next time I become the Anagami, Arahant, so you are chasing just like one-upmanship in your household life. So there are kind of aversions happen because it is the revelation never happen to the desired speed. It happened very slow. So this is what the Buddha explained as the aversion, or it kind of a unpleasant situation or painful situation in the renunciated life. And that is throughout, you can see by looking at your faces, so green. When you are meditating, never smile. When you are chasing behind, each and every sound appears like a distraction. Each and every visual thing has appeared a distraction. Every other misbehavior of the yogi, other yogis appear like something threatening. So you become kind of irritated, or kind of a unpleasant feeling, painful feeling happen. So this is what you call the meditative life, or the mendicants happen. And when and where no pain, no pleasure happens, at the beginning it appears like boring and monotonous and kind of thing. Soon you see, soon you understand, this is what I have to understand. This is the doorway opening to the middle path, and you understand earlier, as far as household is concerned, it appears very boring. Now you try to understand this is what you call the solitude. This is what you call the equanimity. This is what you call the gray area in between the peak and extreme pleasure and the extreme pain. And middle area, now you develop kind of a equanimity to the neither pain, no pleasure kind of a situation. It's a new opening, new avenue, new window for the yogis. So therefore they understand with respect to the pressure and the pain, there is a gray area, that's the neutral part. And that is also immaterial. You delimit it. Understand how often I go into this neither pain nor pleasure situation in city, how often or how quickly I can go into this neither pain nor pleasure kind of a situation in walking meditation, and how often I can go into that in day-to-day activities, that also come into being. So imagine now you have three kinds of pleasure, pain, and neither pain nor pleasure in household kind of experience, maybe in the memory. And when you come to the meditation center, you earn the renunciated kind of pleasure, renunciated kind of pain, and renunciated kind of equanimity. Those are the 6 things. Now the Buddha is using very, very pragmatic, in a very, very radical way of dealing with them, just like a chess game. Then the Buddha says, you must understand, idang nissaya idang pajata. That is the core rule of thumb. That means, by depending on this, abandon this. You have 6 combinations. So the Buddha says, you as a being with considering about one's well-being, so therefore think about the household pleasure or materialistic kind of pleasure with respect to the immaterial kind of pleasure. Can you have a way of life? Can you have a kind of a consideration to replace this household kind of a pleasure with this renunciated kind of pleasure? So that is in furtherance, when you are considering your way of life, your livelihood, and we can do as a team, or we can do individually, how can I replace the worldly pleasure, materialistic kind of pleasure, with this immaterial kind of pleasure or renunciated kind of pleasure? So this part, the Buddha says, it is utterly at your hand, in your hand. Now you are better off because you have an alternative to the household kind of pleasure, and you have already earned, you have certain amount of familiarity, you have certain amount of acquaintance. So in future, see the ways to facilitate it, to fill it more and more with renunciated kind of pleasure, instead of your familiar, the worldly kind of pleasure. So this must be idang nissaya idang pajaya. You dependent upon this, you abandon that. That is the point. We are so weak. We are not even up to the Montessori level now. We know only the household pleasure. We are chasing behind. You just simply ask, tomorrow I will ask, today may be too early, how many hours you can take for meditation? Then you will say, Bhante, you are a monk, you are a forest monk, and you are being fed by the people, and what we have so much of children, and so much of light bill and electricity bill, we have to work, therefore, hardly I can get 1 hour. 23 hours I have to pay for worldly pleasure. 1 hour, with all the difficulties, is it enough, Bhante, to have 1 hour for this renunciated kind of pleasure? You can see the fairness in your consideration once, even if you are acquainted with renunciated kind of pleasure, even if your bottom of your heart, if you know, this is what must be do. This is the message of the Buddha. This is the message of Venerable Sariputta. And this is the message of this retreat. And how can I, not immediately, not overnight, just give a fair consideration about this worldly pleasure versus renunciated kind of pleasure. So this is a task. This is a lifelong experiment. And this is what you call facilitating. This is what you call giving the conducive conditions. This is what you call your sacrifice towards your livelihood. And as far as you find it is difficult due to external factors, I would say you are fool, you are idiot, you are in darkness, you are in ignorance. Because it is not depending on outside, according to the teaching of the Buddha. As far as you do not know these two avenues, two things, yes. But once you being introduced, you can see our rational thinking in our day-to-day timetable and kind of thing. So imagine, day by day, you can adjust in such a way, depending upon this, abandon that. That means you are good. Your worldly pleasure is not you earn through killing. Your worldly pleasure you are not killing through your robbing or stealing. That worldly pleasure not by sexual misconduct, not by lying, slandering, tale carrying and harsh words. It is decent, yes, good. But as far as you have a better thing, that whatever the pleasure you earn in your worldly life is related with materiality, luxury, or basic needs. How often you go beyond basic needs, how often you go beyond utility value for the luxury, for the sake of luxury. And at that sense, can you say you are not a killer? In that sense, can you say you are not a person stealing? Can you say you are not indulging? Can you say you are not lying, slandering, tale carrying? So you have to take care. It is not with the moral responsibility, it's not the transgressional kind of defilement. But still it is a kind of a defilement for spiritual beings to consider, even though I am not killing, stealing and sexual misconduct. As far as I am going for these luxuries and all the kind of indulgence, can I, with little, go to the utility, go to the conservative way, and utility way, and that is the point where you can understand your more than moral restraint, the concentration restraint. I would say it is kind of a more wisdom-based restraint. You must learn how to say enough. It is not a filthy language. Just say enough. Enough is enough. And do it. That is what the Buddha says, you are renunciated, dependent upon this renunciated pleasure, do away, abandon little by little of this worldly pleasure. And that is very straightforward. But when you go to the, how to replace day-to-day painful feeling with the renunciated kind of painful feeling, it is complete psychology. Day-to-day feeling, you know your friction, you know your distractions and kind of thing. So therefore, that is why you go in search of spirituality and this kind of way. Even though your prime aim is not the Nibbana, you know it's utter friction, it's utter frustration, it's utter tension. But when you come to meditation, you know how this painful feeling appear in our common jargon. It appear like boredom, it appear like monotony, it appear like lethargic, it appear like uncertain, it appear like lack of confidence, it appear like a fear. So can you appreciate this renunciated kind of lethargic nature, boredom, as a spiritual advancement? This uncertainty as an earned thing, this is something, an endowment, is a clear sign of advancement of mindfulness. This is the doorway to the spirituality. That is the psychological thing. We can't impose them, but after, while you are meditating, the way you write your report, the way you look at the impediments, in between words, you have this message. You have to listen to your report. When you are listening, in between lines, your message is there. So imagine the day you read your report and you get the proper interpretation, that's the time you can be independent of the teacher and understand how much we are worrying and carried away and obsessed with this, the boredom, this monotony, this uncertainty, this kind of daha parilaha the Buddha is using. It's a kind of frustration. It's a kind of a tension. But it is spiritual. It is kind of a renunciated kind of. So when you read the Pottapada Sutta or Chula Sunyata Sutta, the Buddha is explaining, once you renounce, you come to the Chiang Yen, you don't have all the amenities and facilities and kind of thing. When compared to the other places, this may be better, but not like your household. So therefore you feel some kind of a not at home kind of a feeling. Imagine the day you are going to appreciate it. This is the renunciated life. This is the entering into the forest. This is what you mean by entering, sitting under a tree. This is what does it mean by going into the solitude place. And this is what you call solitude. This is what you call the contentment. Even if it is there, you are going to label it as boring, frustrating, monotonous and fearful. Instead, Buddha gave beautiful words. Use it. Use the word that this is what you call solitude. This is what you call the contentment. This is what you call the peace of mind. This is what you call the slow life. Imagine the day it is going to happen. This is utterly psychological. So the neuroscientists, they wonder, is it a kind of a thing you can teach or you are born with? Whenever you feel the solitude, whenever you feel loneliness, if you are categorized it as a loneliness, you are a sick person. And whenever you see lonely and you consider it as this is kind of aloneness, how can I develop my way of life to increase this aloneness? How can I have a plan for my children to have this aloneness? How can we develop the political policies to have their own aloneness? This is what you call the peace. This is what you call the humanity. And how can the economists assure individual aloneness, economic independence, and the social scientists respect others' aloneness? So when this is happening, it is a doubt. Even the Nehru, the Indian, the best prime minister, he told, I doubt whether the teaching of the Buddha can be applied in the society at large. But one thing is sure, if you practice, you get the result, individually. So are we going to use it in the mass media and say, hey guy, come to the Chuan and sit meditation and be happy with the solitude, go with this contentment? They will send us asylum. Telling these mad fellows, are you speak in America? No. But your America can do it. Not the America at large. Your United States can do it. And that is what says the renunciation kind of painful feeling, depending upon the renunciated kind of painful feeling, abandon worldly kind of painful feeling. Write an essay on that. That will be the best essay on the earth. It's the best. All the others, I would say, bullshit. All the others promoting this gathering and indulgence and all the kind of thing. So you may get the Nobel Prize and the Magsaysay Prize and all the kind of thing. Just read Tripitaka. Who the hell going to give the Nobel Prize for the Tripitaka? No one, because it won't give a commodity. It will not sellable thing. It won't make any money. So therefore it won't. But the appealing is, can I replace this, the worldly kind of, depending upon the painful feeling you earn in the renunciated life, you abandon painful feeling of the household life. And furtherance it goes, I know it is too much, before going home that you are going to fulfill with all this kind of thing. I don't know what you are going to do at home tomorrow. Maybe problems, your family members will chase you and send you to asylum, telling that Zhuang Yin has sent you mad. This is the way it happens. Therefore, don't take so serious, but go slow, little by little. And the third aspect is, depending upon the worldly kind of, the renunciated kind of indifference, or neither pain nor pain kind of a feeling, do away with worldly callousness, worldly insensitivity, the equanimity, and this is vigilant. This is diligence. So when and where you sit and meditate, when and where you do walk and meditate, or walk and be mindful and day to day, see how much you are here and now, how much you are contented with yourself, how much you are not indulging the past and the future, even though it is boring, appear to be. And if you know that when you are keeping the leg and get the touch of the ground with your heel, and slowly it is shifting into the toes, it's no pleasure, no pain. But no new defilements are happening in your stream of consciousness. That assurance is there. You are not hating, or you are not lustful, or you are not rejecting something. So that is the secret. In this our multitasking world, occasionally we can have a stream of consciousness which is not underlined by the lust or kind of irritation, aversion, and you know it is happening. And that's the only point you can say where my mind is free for the moment or temporarily. You know, during the past, this thing and momentum and your habits and personality dispositions may be some kind of friction, but you are dead sure you are not adding something, you are not committing something, because verily you know the touch, verily you know in-breath and out-breath. And when that happens, if you know with the help of, or depending upon this kind of a neutral feeling, if you can do away with the worldly kind of feeling, and that is what you become renounced. You depend upon the immaterial kind of a pleasure, spiritual kind of a pleasure, and religious kind of atmosphere. And you go there, and you have to start somewhere and slowly continue. So to make the long story short, imagine that you understand this kind of nekkamasita somanasa, nekkamasita domanasa, nekkamasita upekha. That means renunciated kind of a pleasurable feeling, renunciated kind of a painful feeling, and renunciated kind of upekha. Then Buddha is playing the chess game, the second part, depending upon the renunciated kind of pleasurable feeling, do away with the renunciated kind of painful feeling. Replace the pleasure, that means you have the prepared mind. you are a happy person, even the boredom happens, even the monotony happens, you go prepared and you know this is a good sign, this is a precursor that I am a spiritual person, don't hate it. And then you can gain under your very nose kind of a contentment, kind of a happiness or kind of a pleasure through Dhamma. So do away, depending upon the renunciated kind of pleasure, do away with renunciated kind of pain. Slowly, slowly that replacement happens. When and where that you gain this art with positive thinking and advancing with the diligence and vigilance, then only, the Buddha says, you, depending upon the neutral feeling or equanimity, you can replace the renunciated kind of pleasure. That is very, very deep. Once you become a happy person only, you can get that advancement in your spirituality, depending upon the equanimous feeling, depending upon this neither pleasure nor pain kind of feeling, you can do away with the pleasurable feeling, and then you, whether sitting or walking or day-to-day activities or seeing or hearing or whatever may be, you see the canvas, not the picture. Or you can see the canvas through the picture. You see the pain and the pleasure, but you know deep down there still the no pain, no pleasure kind of background, the equator or the canvas is there. Not a single thought moment you can do away with that. So whatever the face value, you see through, that is what you call vipassana, and behind you can see the no pain, no pleasure kind of a situation, give the background. And you more recognize or familiarize with no pain, no pleasure kind of thing. And there are, the Buddha says, upekha nanatta sita. Maybe equanimity you gain through the seen through this visual objects, or you may learn the art of listening to the sound of silence through the music, or go to the no pain, no pleasure through the listening, or how to go to the no pain, no pleasure through smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. So it's still multivarious. So the Buddha says that is somewhat defiled because it is nanatta sita, it is different channels. After long time only, you will understand they are nothing but diversification of the same energy. And that is, you come to the upekha ekatta sita. Your consciousness only say, I gain neutral feeling, I gain this equanimity through seeing, or hearing, or listening, or whatever may be. It is at the beginning, at the very primordial form, at the very source. They are not diversified by itself. Your mind is the one. Recognize it as a visual object, or sound, or thought, or smell, or tactile, or mental. So that is being expressed in the quantum physics. The Schrodinger energy waves collapse into matter whenever consciousness interacted. Otherwise, they will not collapse into either visual, or sound, or smell, or taste, or touch, or thought. They are energies. Your consciousness is the what says, this is a sound, this is a light, this is a kind of a smell, taste. So that diversification is happening behind the screen. So when and where you see that diversified kind of equanimity, you can go further. That is the point, you lose your identity. The very beautiful word the Buddha is using, atammayata. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi translates as a non-identified. It's a source, it's a universal law, it's unassuming. You are merging into the cosmic energy, you are not putting label. You are not going to recognize it's happening as a light or sound or whatever may be. I observe it through the eye, ear or whatever may be. When you go to the deep down into the energy never recognizes with time and space, unless otherwise your consciousness is going to recognize it. So therefore, labeling, perceiving is a kind of a defiling. So now, from the ekatasita upekha to atammayata, that is non-identifying, you go back to the source. Before the birth, where were you? You go back to the source. And it appears like a backwardness, but that's the most undefiled form. That is the source. That is Pabhava. Pabhava means the potential, the source. And in Tripitaka, Pabha and Pabhava is gone very close. All the interpretation goes to Pabha. Pabha means the light. But after reading again and again, I see sometimes Pabhassaramidam bhikkhave cittang, whenever the mind is so in its primordial form, unpolluted form, is lustrous, Pabha. And it is Pabha, Pabhava, unpolluted, unmanifested mind. In its original form, it is the source of everything. So your mind is the creator of everything. Whatever create, you believe, and accordingly you canvas it, tell it this is the truth, others are the falsified. But when and where mind come back home, at home, the Buddha mentioned in the Anguttara Nikaya, Pabhassaramidam bhikkhave cittang, agantukeyu pakkilitteyu pakkilittang, tang asutoto putujjano nappajanati, tang asutoto putujjanasa samadhi bhavana natthiti vada. O monks, whoever may be, mind is at home, and the primordial form is full of potential, full of possibilities, or full of light. But right round at the superficial level, it is smeared with the defilements and our habits and all the kind of things. Agantuko pakkilesa, or that means dust, or grease, or soil there. So therefore, when you look at, you see only this outer crust, or outer dust. But it's very thin. Whenever you penetrate through, you start the journey, and when you go to the source, it is full of energy, it's full of potential. So that potential is what we can say our real nature. We are back at home. That is our real home. But we are so worried and so engrossed, so carried away to have a justification and the justice. At the superficial level, the Buddha never think about that. It's such a polluted situation. Of course, when you're there, you must have non-reaction kind of a way to work with these worldly affairs and the worldly beings and your own worldly interest. But when you go deep, deep, deep down, according to these 36, 37 aspects and go deep, deep down there, certain amount you can go deep into the center, or athammayata. It's a non-personifying or unassuming, and you can go there. When you go there, Buddha is there. Dhamma is there. Sangha is there. Everything is there. It is within. It's a journey within. It's go in. So when you are in a high speed, either centripetal or centrifugal powers are working, the worldly knowledge means centrifugal. It's throwing away and creating so much of tension. But it's got the centripetus inside, but don't forget, each and every stage, even in Satipatthana, as and when you go in, Buddha say, put it again back to the out and see how it is outside, how it is inside. That comparison, that is to say, understanding with deep knowledge, with the common sense, how to apply into our day-to-day, it must be reinforced in each and every stage. Not directly go into the deep and you think that is the best and that is natural. No. It has to compare with iti ajjattang va kāye kāyanupassi viharati, bahiddha va kāye kāyanupassi viharati, iti ajjattang va vedanasu vedananupassi viharati, bahiddha va vedanasu vedananupassi viharati. That comparison is the one we do in a group sitting. We as a group, we compare each other. My own journey together with the meditators and the external world. And it has to go hand in hand. Then only the sasana or the dispensation appear like a universal. Otherwise, for a Pacceka Buddha, whereby the mute, silent Buddha, he can understand, but he can't teach others. So there is no much of a spreading. But the Samma Sambuddha, that he understands, he tries to communicate with others. As and when he goes there, he says, go deep, deep, deep as much as possible. And again compare it with outside. And that is how this parijñaya or penetration can happen. So therefore we have, I hope, more tools than at the beginning of the retreat. So therefore when we go out, always do your noble quest or Arya Pariyesana. Hope it will give a least frictional path for you to go or leading to more comfort zone. With that statement as the last, I would like to sum up the talk today, and this will be the last talk in our series also. Thank you very much for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.